One, two, three, three, two, one. What the heck is bothering me? One, two, three, three, two, one. What the heck is bothering me? One, two, three, three, two, one. What the heck is bothering me? One, two, three, three, two, one. What the heck is bothering me? Okay. It's we all be live. We all be live. Okay, I think it's on. Hey, sister, Ezra, how you doing?
Finding you.
I'm good. I'm trying to tell you, this stuff is weird. It be acting funny sometimes. I feel like 2020 is a whole year of Mercury retrograde.
I beg your pardon?
I think 2020 is like a whole year of Mercury retrograde.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
So how your weekend been going? Holiday weekend?
Oh, it's been going fine. Yeah, I've enjoyed my 3 day weekend. Definitely. I
It
need
went by, yeah.
definitely needed the break. So
Did it go by so fast though? Is it weird?
yeah, it didn't feel like Christmas because I usually go home to Indiana
Mm-hmm.
and go this year. So it kind of felt like any other day of the week, so to speak. But yeah, it did go kind of quick. It's kind of sad. I have to go back to work tomorrow.
That's cool. Well, life goes on, but it's like, we almost through 2020.
Right, exactly.
Really don't know what to expect for 2021. I'm not in a rush actually.
Right. Well, hey, I'm ready to.
So we all be is honored to we're celebrating the Jimmy Lunsford Jamboree Festival online this year, virtual festival, 2020 Jimmy Lunsford Jamboree Festival. Like actually we doubled. Like normally it'll be like a whole week in the last week of October, but I would say, hey, let's go for 14 days in December, and hopefully things will be different next year for us. But it's an honor to have on really a day one supporter of a lot of things. We all be Sister Angela Green, attorney at law, attorney, all about the biz, about the music biz, helping people position themselves for millions.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
So just tell us a little bit about who you are, Sister Angela Green. I know you've been on here before, but can you refresh the people's memory?
Right. So I'm an attorney by trade. Been practicing in the area of music, entertainment law for probably over 20 years now.
Wow.
Built my law practice in real estate. So real estate, business, entertainment, music, film, that's kind of the areas that I've focused on. So I've kind of, over the years, even though I have the position for Million Music Business Consulting Company, I've kind of geared a lot of my entertainment law experience towards the nonprofit on location Memphis. And so that's a nonprofit here in Memphis. For 17 years, they hosted one of the international film and music festivals. When I took it over in 2014, I started trying to kind of gear it towards an area here in the community that was needed. There were a lot of film festivals, some larger than us, that were doing quite well in that space. And so I started looking for another space that would be more beneficial to the community. And so that's when we developed the Memphis Music Bank program, which is essentially a platform for licensing music for TV, film, and visual media, kind of teaching the artists how to prepare their content and protect their content so that it can be licensed, and then actually going out and finding those licensing opportunities. And then we're also trying to develop that scoring skill, because we know film scoring is where a lot of the good money can be made, for artists. So we were, I thank God, because we were kind of ahead of the game. We were, for 2 years prior to 2020, we were kind of, touting the flag for mailbox money, learning how to license your music, finding alternative ways of generating income from your music. And then 2020 just basically put it in people's face as why this is why you need to have other ways of generating income other than live performances or selling CDs. And so it was a difficult lesson for many on the music side of the industry, but it definitely brought it home. And then those who were already on the licensing side, they're very thankful, because many of them, those mailbox money checks were coming in, and that side of the industry, the streaming platforms and all of those, they did quite well in 2020. They actually thrived more so than usual because of it, and they still needed content. So that music licensing still came into play. So But that, in a nutshell, that's pretty much, what we do over here.
Yeah. Also, I want to promote something. I mean, you are really a true hidden gem, a treasure to behold. And just want to promote your YouTube page a little bit.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Position for Millions. Y'all need to check it out because you got a lot of great, advice. I mean, we say it's free, but it's not free. That's hard earned experience. 20 years plus of experience, hard knock, wisdom, and insight. And she got a lot of her videos that she talk about the industry available for y'all to watch. And what really caught my eye, I think it's one of the best videos that I seen on the review of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It should have went viral to me. I mean, you nailed a lot of things in like under 20 minutes that people, because we are very emotional people, but you was looking at it from a logical, this business point of view. And I think what you said went over a lot of people's heads, So I just want you to touch on that. I hope I'll be willing to play it, what I'm saying, on here, but you can sum up some of the high points.
Yeah, definitely. So like everyone else, I was excited to watch Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I had not seen the play, so I was not familiar with the story at all. So Friday night, I just kind of buckled in and was like, okay, I'm ready to watch this. And so in watching it, of course, I loved it. The acting was phenomenal, which everyone knew that it was going to be, especially being Chadwick Boseman's final theatrical performance. So definitely had high expectations for it. But when I really recognized what it was about, it just struck me as a class. You know what I'm saying? I was just every point all the way through it. I was just it was just jumping out at me the different aspects of both careers, both Levee and Ma Rainey. And the good and the bad, and it just kind of kind of visualized things that I had already spoken about on my YouTube channel about negotiating power, understanding your negotiating position, basically being able to build your career and creating your fan base and things of that nature. So it basically illustrated all of the things that we were, that I've been talking about for 20 years or so. And that's the reason why I was like, this is a masterclass for anybody who's in the music industry starting out, who wants to learn about how to negotiate, learn about building their career. They can take a lot of tidbits, from this film if they really pay attention, you know what I'm saying? Because you have to be kind of focused on that, So, but yeah, we can definitely chop it up because, and then there are a lot of social issues that I didn't even get into the social side of it, but just for the business side, just from Ma Rainey herself and the fact that she created her career, the way she created her career, she did a grassroots effort in her career. So she didn't look to appeal to the masses. She looked to appeal to her community first. And she built her fan base around that. She built her economic base around that. And then therefore it gave her a level of independence from the broader community at large, so she was not, she was able to, I guess, insulate herself from some things that, African Americans back then in the 20s had to endure, because she didn't have to ask for a job. She didn't have to work for anyone. She was not getting paid by the Caucasian community. She was getting paid through her people who loved her. And so that gave her a level of swag, a level of confidence, and a level of independence that she was then it gave her a foundation. As she grew larger and larger, and then of course the broader Caucasian community and the music industry as a whole started to kind of turn their eye and say, hey, this is a moneymaker, and we can blow this up a little bit further. When that knock came to her, she was able to really make sure she benefited from it, because she was in a position to call her own shots. She was in a position to make demands. And because she understood her negotiating power and negotiating position in the situation, was always able to, make the right decisions, make the right demands, and basically get exactly what she wanted because of it. And so on the flip side, which was so ironic, her Levee's character, he basically did the total opposite. He did not build a fan base. He did not build a career. He did, he positioned himself as an employee because he worked for her as his trumpet player. And so when he was brought to the table, and then he, and the movie didn't really, it didn't show how he began his communication with the music industry executives. However, in that communication, he was negotiating as well, but he didn't realize, he did not really understand his position or his negotiating position in talking with them. He thought talent was enough. I'm talented, I can play, I can write this music. That's enough to get exactly what I want out of the deal. Not recognizing that is not always the case, because even though you have the talent and you can write the music and such, what you want out the deal, which is to basically do your own thing, may not necessarily be what the other person wants out of the situation. And I don't want to give any spoilers, so we have to do a spoiler alert, because if you want to really get into it, to kind of dig into what happened in the film, and it kind of gives some spoilers.
So go ahead, do it. Go ahead, dig. They should have saw about now. It was Christmas. They had like fire stick and all that stuff. They had black folks had a chance.
Just dig on into it. So
yeah, dig on into it.
Yeah. So essentially, when you looked at starting out with Ma, when you compared her relationship with the people, it was very confrontational, and it was very it was very in your face, nothing personal about it. This is what we're trying to do, that sort of thing. Whereas Levee was trying to be very amenable and very congenial, to them. So when it starts out, he had somehow started talking to the gentleman and had basically gotten the gentleman to agree to use his version of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom song on her album. Because his version was supposed to be the hip version, the new version, the version that will appeal to the young, the young community, and maybe the overall community as a whole, black and white. And so he basically had that conversation with the gentleman and had gotten him to agree to it. And so when it kind of starts out, he's basically telling the band members, as they're, preparing for this recording session, we're using my version. And so, the band leader was telling him, no, Ma is basically, she doesn't like that version. You're not going to use that version. Levee was just so adamant of the fact that, the man said we're using my version. He's going to basically straighten this out. This is what he said. This is what he told me. So this is what's going to happen. And he quickly learned that once, Ma made it to the recording studio, she was not having it. She was basically, I'm going to use my version, and that's that. And so, and quickly, because of her negotiating position with the gentleman, when it became clear that she wasn't going to record unless she was recording her version, they acquiesced. So the situation was, she understood they wanted her voice. And her voice was already a marketable commodity, because she'd already sold, ticket sales, and she knew people were coming in for her music, and they knew it. So essentially, if you want this voice on record, then you will do my version. You know what I'm saying? And so, and because she would always, and she made it clear that she didn't care if they recorded. So, her thing was always, hey, I can just go back down south, no problem. We call that a credible threat. She knew where her line was. Her line is either my way or the highway. And she was willing to walk away from the deal if it was not her way. And so recognizing her negotiating position, which was in the power position, she was able to force her version of the song onto her album. That's the first tip that I kind of recognized off of that. The second thing was her level of loyalty. everything really kind of boils back to her, positioning herself. And you know what, I just kind of want to get into this other subject because I can get into the legal side of it. It was that situation, negotiating position, creating your background, as far as your fan base and all. That's all the business side. But the one side of it that I really didn't touch on that we can probably just chop it up here.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
The fact that they could not, as the Black man and woman, could not come together. You know what I'm saying? Because she was the foundation, you know, so she had basically created the system. She had the tour schedule, which means she knew the venue owners, which means she had the system in which she went through to create, you know, to basically create her career the way it is. So now, the way it was. So now you have this young gentleman, Levee, who is, he's young, he's Black, he's into the, you know, what is new, what's up and coming. And because of her fears, I saw it because of her fears, she did not embrace him and to recognize the greatness in him and to say, hey, if we pull together, I'm making money, but then I can turn around and help him make some money because I can shoot him through the system that I've already created and therefore build him up, still making my money plus making money off of him, but still positioning him in a position of power because that's what he wanted. He wanted to be like Ma. So that's the other thing, to be like Ma, but he did not respect her enough to actually go through her, you know what I'm saying? Humble himself to say, I see where she is. I want to be where she is. I love how she's able to talk to these industry executives the way she are and to enforce her will on them, but yet not humble enough to say, Ma, take me under your wing, teach me. You know what I'm saying? Teach me and follow her footsteps so that he can position himself. Instead, he decided to go his own route, which was to go straight. He put his faith in, instead of putting it in Ma, he put it into the Caucasian record executives. And that's where, even though he did not like them underneath, he really loathed them underneath, but he was taught through the situation with his childhood that he always thought that the Caucasian community, that's who was in charge. If it was a Caucasian man there, that's the one who was in charge. That's the one who was running things. And he could not recognize the power that lied within Ma Rainey. And that was one of the other things that really just kind of, you know, struck me, because I was like, she could have, the two of them together could have been a powerhouse, because she dominated the first half of the blues, you know, industry, and he could have come in and dominated the second, because, you know, you see at the end of the movie, the songs that he wrote, the man took them. You know, he basically flipped them. You know, he flipped the script on them, took his songs, and then gave it to another band to play. A lack of respect.
Yeah.
A lack of respect for each other. On her part towards Levee, and on Levee's part towards her.
You know, I was thinking about that because I know that, you know, Levee is I guess a fictional character. Ma Rainey was a real historical character. But you gotta think about this too. This is 1927. And really the top dog during that time period was Bessie Smith, who was a protege of Ma Rainey. She might have, I think she got burned by Bessie because they were real close, you know.
Right.
They were real close.
They kind of hinted at it in the movie, you know, when they was asking her, she was like, "What I care about Bessie? Bessie learned from me," you know.
Yeah, she took her, hey.
The animosity.
Maybe that she was apprehensive about Levee because they experienced with a Bessie Smith, you know, a very talented understudy or a protege.
That might have been the case. You know, I hadn't even thought of it from that direction, but yeah, that might have been the case, that she was, you know, she may have been say, okay, I'm not going to be burned like that again.
You know, yeah, Queen Latifah did a movie about Bessie Smith, and Monique played the Ma Rainey character in the Bessie Smith movie that Queen Latifah did. Remember, like several years ago? Yeah, she played the Ma Rainey character, and it was like really heavy on the bisexuality, the gender fluidity. It was really heavy on that. Really heavy on that.
What's the name of that movie? Because I didn't catch that one.
Well, it was like Queen Latifah, but it was produced on HBO. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but Queen Latifah played Bessie Smith, and Monique played Ma Rainey, and Mike Epps played the love interest at the end. 'Cause you know, Bessie Smith got killed, she died in Clarksdale at the Riverside Motel back in September 1937. Real bad car accident. I mean, she lost her arm in a car accident. Legend has it that she couldn't get treated at a White's hospital that was nearby, so it cost her life. But you just don't know about these things. But it's right down on 61 down in Clarksdale, man. And she died. But yeah, they had a relationship, and I heard, you know, Bessie was like, it's funny because people don't understand. People think that Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion, excuse me, Meg the Ryan should be Meg D. Mayer, but that's another story. But they think that they're doing something new with the WAP. They were talking about WAP in them blues songs back in the 20s and 30s. They were talking about smoking weed, bisexuality. Like Robert Johnson, he had a song about, you know, squeeze my lemon and let the juice run down my leg. So what is that about? You squeezing somebody's lemon and let the juice run down their leg. But I'm saying, you talk about police brutality. Even you look at like country music. Like I can say the first gangster rap song was Blue Yodel Number 9. Or Yodel Number 9 by Jimmy Rogers, you know, Yole, ole, ole. And he had Harden Armstrong on piano. He had Louis Armstrong on the trumpet. And he was talking about shooting a game of craps on Bill Street in Maine, and then shooting them down and sitting out around his home. This is a white boy from Mississippi talking about being in Memphis, shooting craps and shooting dudes and sending them home on Bill Street in Maine. You know, the Orpheum Theaters at Bill in Maine. I mean, all this stuff is weird, but nothing's new under the sun in terms of like the vulgarity and the sexuality stuff.
Yeah, nothing is new, except back then they knew how to illustrate what they're saying as opposed to just coming out and saying it. You know what I'm saying? They metaphor and analogy, and you know, and I guess it made it a little bit more palatable. You know what I'm saying?
Jelly roll and handyman. I need a handyman on my jelly roll. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So like, sometimes you don't have to make everything so crystal clear. You know what I'm saying? Still get what you're talking about or whatever. So, but yeah, you're right. Nothing is new under the sun. It all just kind of goes, you know, just goes around, but it just seems like each generation gets a little bit more direct and more transparent in what it is they're trying to say and where it is they're trying to go. But you see over time that the music back then still stands today. I mean, that was created when you listen to the lyrics and the stories that were told. That's going to stand the test of time because those stories are universal and human stories that will, you know, recycle themselves over and over because everybody's always going to go through those different emotions and different situations and things. So I'm hoping people get back to that because we've kind of gotten away from that awesome storytelling, which is what music is supposed to be about. And that's what makes for a great song. Because if I can listen to the lyrics, I mean, if the music is good, that'll be great for the moment. But once the music styles change, that song is no longer going to be, you know, in the consciousness of the people. But if the story with the music is there and people recognize it, then it doesn't matter how the music changed. That song is always going to be timeless because of the story that it's conveying. My humble opinion on it.
That's true, man. You know, like I was telling people all the time, like I like listening to, I talk about country music, but you look at like a Hank Williams Sr. and all those people, they learn from black people how to tell those stories. So Hank Williams Sr., his master teacher was a guy named Rufus T-Top Payne, who taught him how to play the guitar and sing the blues. He's hired by his mom. He died during the Great Depression, but you know, Hank Williams died on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day at the age of 29. But he said it himself that the guy who taught him was this black dude named Rufus T-Top Payne. If you listen to Hank Williams sing, it sounds very black the way he put over a song or played the guitar. It's like a bluesy approach. But everything comes down to the ability to tell a story.
Right.
Attn is great storytelling. Everything. Comes down to art of storytelling.
Exactly. The art of storytelling. I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
So I mean, yeah. So there's so much. You get a chance to see Sylvia's Love by any chance on Amazon Prime?
Not yet.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Check that out. Good.
Oh, it's great, man. I could use more of that type of stuff right now. I mean, to see Ma Rainey last weekend, Then to see that, I mean, that's like great black cinema. You don't need all this vulgarity and sex. It's all about promoting a healthy relationship between a black man and a black woman.
Right.
Like you said, in the Ma Rainey, it was about, the dysfunction, the toxicity of the relationship between the black man and black woman. But in this, it's like on the other side of it. It shows how you can have a healthy relationship between a black man and black woman. It's set in late 1950s, early 1960s, New York City jazz scene. I think I was born in the wrong time period. Cause I would love to go back to them jazz clubs, listen to some John Coltrane and Thelonious Monk at the 5 Spot. I missed out on that, but it was great. Because the guy who produced it was Nnamdi, the former football player who's married to Kerry Washington, the former NFL great and a college standout at Cal. But I mean, he got a bright future ahead of him, I think. I mean, he's following the footsteps of the Jim Brown, Bernie Casey's, and Fred Williamson, but he's doing it from another. He's a legitimate leading man. Okay. And it was good to see that, like, they're not trying to promote some type of weird agenda to undermine black love. It's kind of like a Love Jones for this time, I would think.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see Love Jones until last year. I'm late to the party.
Well, I mean, long as you saw it.
That was a problem. I see why people love it though.
Oh yeah, that was one of the best out of there. Love Jones, Jason's Lyric. I don't know.
I'll think about this today.
That's a good one as well. So and then, if you're talking about today, I haven't seen that one, but I did see The Photographer. I don't know if you've caught that one.
I haven't seen that yet. I know you're talking about the weird girl from Insecure. She's kind of weird though. She's like a black version of Woody Allen for real. I mean, that's her idol, and she acts like so uncomfortable with herself.
Well, she basically showed a different side of her acting capabilities.
Oh, so she really excels. She stepped outside the comfort zone.
Yeah, she was definitely a totally different character in this movie, and it just. It was good. It showed a good story between a man and a woman as far as love, but then it also showed between a daughter and a father, and a mother who's gone on and she's trying to, make right some of the things that she didn't do properly in her own life, not wanting her daughter to follow in her own footsteps. So it was a really good story. That was like a couple of weeks ago. I found that one.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out just on your recommendation, because I know with Insecure, my problem with her and Tiffany Haddish, they're not really foundational black people. It's like you making a character of black women. Sometimes I look at Insecure like it's like a caricature. Like if Tiffany Haddish, are you that really ghetto? Is that really you?
Right.
Cartoon. I mean, is that really who you are?
Right, exactly. I see,
but they're not really fully like us. Like, my folks from here, you know what I'm saying? I can trace my lineage all the way back, all the way to the American Revolutionary War.
Right.
These folks fresh off the boat base. They one generation removed from getting off the boat. Voluntarily so. But yeah, you like even the Amanda Seals character. She's not from here either.
Amanda Seals character.
They be on Insecure, like the light skin, high yellow broad.
I've never seen Insecure.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. That's why you saw The Photographer, so now you got to see Insecure to talk about. Know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I got because I'm like,
because I mean, like goofy stuff. Like, damn, man. Like, but then it's a lot of weirdness going on right now because people are not really comfortable with themselves. People are really socially awkward, very introverted. Like, you try to talk to somebody in person, they on their phone texting you. Like, damn, I'm right here in front of you.
Right.
Look up, damn it. Look at me. Take a look over your shoulder, honey. Woo! I'm here. I'll be there. But everybody's afraid. They don't know how to communicate. The art of the small talk is dead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's just a construct of what has developed through social media and everything. I don't know if you've seen that, what's it called? The Social Dilemma or whatever on Netflix. That documentary really highlighted a lot of that as far as almost like Arrested Development in social skills. Because you basically have lost the definition of friendship, because you got 5,000 friends. You know what I'm saying? And half of them you don't know, you've never interacted with or whatever. I mean, so is that truly friends? You know what I'm saying? I mean, or likes, people who are living, younger people who are living their life on the number of likes that they get on something that they post on social media or whatever. It just kind of, it's kind of sad, but you have a whole generation that has grown up with that. And that's kind of all that they know. And It's just interesting, but yeah, I totally agree with you on that. You know, so a lot of people, and you wonder with this situation with 2020, you know, has that made the situation worse or better? You know, forcing families to be home with each other and forcing people to have to interact with each other. It kind of, you know, you wonder about that.
Yeah, I do, but you know, I think a lot of people they're not really comfortable with themselves. Like, you know,
Right.
I'm a loner. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I'm a social hermit. I could socially engage people. I have no problem networking and stuff like that. But I have no problem being by myself and being comfortable and
Right.
being alone and dealing with my thoughts and my traumas and all this other crap and still be functional. A lot of folks don't know how, because like this year has been so extreme in heightening people's fears, anxieties off the hook. Yo, a lot of times people don't understand your fear compromises your immunity. You worry about the COVID, but all that fear mongering is compromising your immunity and also your productivity. And I look at somebody like Ma Rainey, where she had to get out there and earn that reputation. She had to get out there and, like you said, grassroots. She had to get in people's faces. She had to deal with those racist bastards in the Iraq. And she had to do all that and face that. She had to go through something to be able to say something, and that makes a person authentic. There's a lot of folks that ain't really authentic right now.
Oh yeah,
they're not saying too much of anything.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you on that. You know, people they're just living for that 15 minutes of fame a lot of times, and that's kind of sad. You know, that a person would be they wrap their lives around that. But I mean, what exactly can you do about it? You know, until they are willing to open their eyes and see that there's a different way to go, it's really nothing that you can do about it.
Yeah, and also I will tell Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is on Netflix, and Sylvia's Love is on Amazon Prime. Both of those movies are worth checking out. I mean, it's like a great compare and contrast. And also in that movie, they talk about the music industry, how they basically got over the jazz musicians. Because people talking about, like, it was looking like in one scene they were talking about this guy wanted to do his own band, and the record producer said, "Your time has passed. Jazz is dead. Basically, it's the Motown sound." What cats don't understand is that the reason why that Motown sound was so good, nothing but first-rate jazz musicians. It was jazz musicians that were playing their pop songs. They were the most, like, you know, proficient and diverse. Like Quincy Jones talked about it. Kind of like Ringo Starr. He said he can't play worth shit. So he took him on a break and got a real jazz drummer up in there to play on them songs. That's why a lot of times people don't understand back in the day. A lot of times those musicians, you hear them live, they don't sound as well live as they do in the recorded studio because it may not be them playing. It might be some real jazz dude playing
on the album.
Think, why they don't sound like in person? Because they not them playing. It's like Milli Vanilli. Milli Vanilli should still have a career right now, and one of them committed suicide. But I'm saying they always did that.
Right.
That's nothing new.
Put somebody else's voice on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all the time. You know, especially when they were performing. Sometimes they would be lip syncing to the album.
Oh yeah, because Britney Spears got exposed on Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
Yep. And everything. And I mean, that's just what they did, you know. You very rarely do you have artists like your Whitney Houston or your Patti LaBelle or you know, people who can just Barbra Streisand, people who just get on stage and sing. They don't have to have the dancers and all the other stuff going on behind them. Their voice alone could carry the show. And it's you know, we don't have many of those types of artists coming along now.
Yeah, Whitney really was like, it's a travesty how Clive Davis treated her career, because he really held her back artistically.
Who, Clive Davis?
Yeah, he did. You know, she wanted to get into that soulful stuff, and he wouldn't let her. I want you to be popish, and you know, like you, the girl next door, but she from Jersey, man. She ain't the girl from next door. I mean, she was a tough cookie, you know what I'm saying? But he wanted to put that image across like that. He held her back musically, like with the popish stuff. She could have went deep into stuff, all that talent she had with that voice.
Well, the thing is, starting out, he was trying to basically position her to make money. I mean, that's basically what he hired. You know, he signed her to do. He envisioned what he could make and that she could cross over. And he went about signing her and molding her into that public figure. And you have to look at where she was when she entered into that, and it goes all the way back to what we initially were talking about, is negotiating position. You know what I'm saying? So when she entered into the situation, even though her mother was a very well respected industry professional, and so it afforded her some opportunities and to get next to some people and some that most people may not have been able to, but she did not have the upper hand when she initially went into that deal with Clive Davis. She was still the artist who was looking to for the label to put the money behind her and to push her out there. So in doing that, they laid out the stipulations as to how we will go about doing this. And she agreed, and her mom and them agreed, and they were fine with it because it did exactly what they wanted it to do. It crossed her over. She was beloved, Black, white, and anyone, worldwide. So it put her on a very unique, in a very unique position, but it also flipped her negotiating position. But she never recognized, and that's the thing. It's like the artist, it's like once the negotiating position has flipped, they don't use it to their benefit, because once it flips, once you have the backing and the audience, and then you're able to now call the shots, so that negotiating position flips. And the artists back then, it's like they didn't recognize the flip. Whereas the artists today, such as your Jay-Z, your Beyonce, your Kanye, they recognize the flip. And so once they do what they do to get to the level, but then once they're there, they recognize that now the power is in mine, because those people are following me. Those people are listening to me. I don't need the album I don't need the label to put all this money behind me to push my album out, because I'm Beyonce now. I don't even have to promote the album. All I got to do is just drop the album, and I'm going to sell X amount, 100,000 units, or digitals, because I got people whose eyes are on me 24/7, regardless. You know what I'm saying? So it's shifted. And most of the artists, even, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, everything, it's like they didn't understand how the artist's position was going to change, or has changed once you reach that level. Now, Prince knew it, so once he got out of his deal, he was the first artist to go and sell direct to consumer. He did the website, and he had the club, and people could buy his albums direct. He was the first artist to do those things through the internet, because he recognized the fact that he has his audience now. So doesn't need the label per se to make his money. You have to sell. You were the label who's taking the majority of money, then yeah, you have to sell millions of units so that you can make some decent money. But if you keeping the bulk of the money, you really don't have to sell millions to do quite nicely and do well. And so that's the unfortunate thing with Whitney Houston. I mean, once she had the status, she could have forced the issue if she wanted to get into the more soulful music and the soulful sound or whatever. And she had built the passport with her audience, that they would have given her the leeway to explore other avenues or other genres of music if that's what she wanted to do. So I agree a little bit that he held her back, but then the part of me, I don't, because I feel like she just didn't understand where she, what she had or where she was. So that's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, I was thinking about when I saw her funeral up in New Jersey, and Kevin Costner, who was her co-star in The Bodyguard, he eulogized her. And there's a saying I'd be thinking about. It says, the greater the artist, the greater the insecurities. And she was sound like a very, very insecure person. So she didn't really know her value or worth, like let's say like a Ma Rainey per se. She didn't have the confidence because she didn't really know her value. Even in her last days, it's like she didn't really know her value and what she brought to the table. Now with Michael Jackson, now with Prince, I would say this, and people got to think about this. Prince had all this unreleased music in a vault in his mansion. And you want us to believe he didn't have no will. He just got his publishing and masters, and a year later on the anniversary, just about, they found him dead in the elevator in his home. And you want us to believe he didn't have no will. He get all that stuff with Warner Brothers, wrote slave on his face, and he didn't have no will to make sure that stuff would be, handled correctly after death. But also with Michael Jackson, he didn't live. See, Michael Jackson was a boss. He got punished for being a boss because, it's Paul McCartney that said it's money in controlling publishing. And he outbidded Paul McCartney for the Beatles catalog. And Paul McCartney, they fell out over that. He probably was dead, and he was glad that Michael was dead, allegedly, probably, maybe. He outbidded Paul McCartney with Yoko Ono, John Lennon's widow. But Paul McCartney became a billionaire, right? But also Paul McCartney was screwed over by the guy who was Sam Cooke's business partner. Okay. The guy who took Sam Cooke's publishing, his family still control it to this day. But he screwed over the Beatles. He helped break up the Beatles. And he screwed over the Rolling Stones. So it's not just a black thing, it's just an artist thing where they manipulate artists. But Michael they killed Michael Jackson. They murdered him for his catalog. And you talk about, I remember Michael had that press conference in New York City with Al Sharpton. He said, Tommy Mottola's the devil. And Al Sharpton kind of walked away. I'm gonna screw on out here. But Tommy Mottola, he's the devil, he's an evil man. And Michael was speaking like truth to power. Because Tommy Mottola controlled the career of Mariah Carey. I remember when Mariah Carey came out. She was amazing, but she was controlled by Tommy Mottola.
Oh yeah.
Who is? It's a gangster business. Music business is shady.
It is. It's a book that I read called Record Man. That if anyone who's interested in the industry, they ought to read that book, which it kind of goes to the heart. It basically talks about the different men, such as your Tommy Mottola, your Clive Davis, and several others, kind of give you that history, that background on their rise. But one of the things that that they spoke of was, and this was actually which kind of led me to write my little book that I wrote called Deal Makers and Litigators, Music Industry Gladiators is what it's called. It's about deal makers and litigators. But in that book, they talked about the fact that the music, the labels, they had deal makers. These were attorneys that didn't work for them, but they were attorneys that they knew, that they had a relationship with, and that they would, if they had an artist that they were trying to sign, they would always refer the artist to that attorney because that attorney would make the deal. That attorney basically knew the ins and the outs of what was going on and would not blow the deal up, so to speak. So, so they would always say, okay, why don't you use this attorney? So it gives you the appearance of no conflict of interest because, this attorney doesn't work for the label, they're their own label, whatever, but they had this relationship. They were called deal makers, and that's what they referred to them as, deal makers. And so I said, okay, I understand the value of a deal maker and the fact that you need someone who, when you're making deals, you want to have a good relationship, you want to have a level of trust, you want to have a level of understanding and that sort of thing. However, whenever there was a fallout between the artist and the label, when they would go back to their attorney, a lot of times those attorneys didn't want to get involved with, with the situation because of the fact that they're deal makers. So, how am I going to now try to enforce my will on, and you would say that's a conflict of interest or whatever. And you know what, it very well may be, but it doesn't change the fact of what it is. You have deal makers, and deal makers need to be a certain way in order to be in a position to make the deal. And so in my book, I say, well, you know what, if you're going to be an artist, you're working in this industry and you have to deal with deal makers in order to make the deal, then you need to have you a litigator in your back pocket as well. And a litigator is basically that person who's not connected with the industry, but does know how the industry works, who does not have a problem with suing somebody if that's what is needed to be done in order to enforce your rights on that contract. So you need to have two of those individuals in your back pocket. You have your deal maker, you let them do what they do and make that deal. But then if you have a problem with the deal that they made, then you pull out your litigator and you let your litigator go after the situation. So that's kind of what kind of made me really think through the situation, because you always have artists who say, they have their attorney, and they, you know, they're fine with their attorney, but then if something happens, they go back to that attorney, and then they were like, you know, that attorney wasn't good. They couldn't help me, or they couldn't, you know, file the lawsuit, or they couldn't do this, that, and the third. And I'm like, that's because you're dealing with a deal maker attorney, not a litigator attorney. That deal maker trying to maintain relationships, because relationships is how they're able to make the deals for you. The relationships is how they're able to get in through the doors that other people can't get through. And you want them to maintain those relationships. So don't jeopardize that situation. But if you need be, then you have someone else who can go in and represent your rights on that end. So, but I got that concept from reading that book, because I noticed that they always talked about their deal makers. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. And it makes you question whether or not you want the record label to be referring you to your attorney. You may want to get
definitely. The peace, because the deal maker is the peacemaker, and the litigator is the warrior or the soldier, right? It's time of peace and a time of war. It's a time and place for everything. But you know, you said, I'm thinking about a couple of things. That Dave Chappelle stand up. We talked about boycotting, you know, the Chappelle show. He had a lawyer he thought was representing his best interest. Like, you know, Dave Chappelle ain't a stupid person. He come from a very educated and accomplished family, and even he got screwed over because the contract said something about using his name for perpetuity into the universe. What the hell that mean? And he asked the lawyer, was a good deal, and the lawyer trying to keep those relationships, I guess, the deal maker with these corporations, with these entities. Said, yeah, go ahead, sign it. And come to find out, he's not making any money off of that show, and he can't even use the name of the show for another project. He basically sold his name.
Right. And it kind of tells you, where was he? Well, one, in understanding the situation, because if you go from the business perspective on the situation, if I spend the money and I create this project around you or whatever, I'm the one that's putting the money into it. And usually whoever's putting the money into making the situation, they're the person who actually is on it, because they're paying to have that content created. So at that point, once I do that, then I want to button it up all the way. I want to make sure that I'm able to exploit that content to its fullest for however long that content is going to be able to make money. So they constantly say, you know, we have the right to use in perpetuity or whatever. We don't want the situation to ever stop. You know what I'm saying? Because just like the content was hot, then it goes cold, because Chappelle went out for 10 years. He was off the scene. Then he comes back. So guess what? Now the content is hot again. Well, I want to still be able to make, but I don't want to now, because after 10 years, then I have to go ahead and renegotiate the situation with you for your name and your likeness or whatever, so that I can get it on back out there, because it's hot again and it's about to make some more money. So that's the thing. But then as an artist, then you position yourself, say, okay, we're going to do that. You know, you're going to do that. But guess what? I need to be able to get some money, some residuals. I need to stay in the mix. As long as you're making money, I'm making money, or whatever. Where you are in the negotiating position that determines how you're able to negotiate that deal. And the thing is it moral? Maybe not, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, if they're not making money, and, you don't know the details of his deal specifically, but yeah, if they're making money, he should be making money. That's the moral thing to do. But what's legal is not always moral. And you have to just keep that in mind when you're negotiating, especially in entertainment business. And you have to always just recognize where your position is. I did a whole video on Star Wars and on my YouTube channel, where it talks about negotiating positions and how those negotiating positions change over time. And it talked about the story of Star Wars, which went back in the 70s, and how they negotiated with the toy industry to create the toys from the first Star Wars trilogy. And so when they first came out with the first movie, their negotiating position was very low, because the toy industry was not known to be driven by movies. It was driven by television. So when he had this movie called Star Wars, and he started negotiating with them to create his toys, First off, most of them were not interested. The second thing is the industry was used to having a 2-year window in which to create the toys. He started shopping it 6 months out. Okay, so he basically didn't know how the industry functioned. So most of the people said, no, we don't want to be involved with the situation. We don't have our 2-year window. Plus, on top of that, we don't know, film don't push toy sales, TV push toy sales. So they backed out. It was only Kenner who was a small industry toy maker and was looking for something to get involved with. They went in and got the deal. But guess what? Because of where they were and how it was, they worked out a deal with him where they only had to pay, they got $10,000, only had to pay George Lucas $10,000 a year to have the rights to toys in perpetuity. Okay, so they had the deal. $10,000 a year was the minimum that they had to pay him. Now, we all know what happened with the first string of toys. It was off the chain. They were only paying him maybe 5 cents, or something. It was like real little or whatever, but he had to make the deal because he needed the toys. Well, of course, after the first 3 movies came out, he decided to rest the brand or whatever. So he didn't do any movies for probably 10 years or so. I don't know, but it was a long time.
A long time, yeah.
During that time, Kenner was sold to another toy company, and that toy company didn't recognize the value of the deal that they had. Of course, Star Wars was down, those toy sales were down. So that's what they let the deal lapse. They missed the payment, the $10,000 minimum payment. So the rights reverted back to George Lucas. Well, then after the rights reverted back to George Lucas, then he decides, oh, guess what? I'm going to do a prequel. And then he went back out to shop the rights to the deal. Well, guess what? Everybody wanted to get in on that deal because it was a proven moneymaker. They saw what happened with the first 3. So they was thinking that the next 3 was going to be the same way with the toy sales. Kenner actually overbid it. You know what I'm saying? They actually did the work, they did a 180. So they actually did, his negotiating power has shifted, and the deal that he struck with them, they actually overpaid. And then of course everybody knows the toys didn't sell the same way the second go around with the prequels or whatever. But it's a clear illustration of how negotiating power is affected by time, circumstances, situations, and it changes as well depending on what's going on and the information that people have.
That's a great story because George Lucas still was able to become a billionaire, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and of course they sold the whole franchise to Disney for billions and everything.
I think you regret that move because the movies ain't the same. I haven't been looking. It's something about those first 3, like trying to remake Godfather. Just leave it alone. Just stick with those first 3. Just leave it alone.
I mean, I would have loved to see. It was always a 9 parts trilogy, series from what he's saying. He just did the first 3 was the most exciting, so he came out with those first. The second 3 was probably, the least because it was setting everything up. But I would have loved to have seen his vision for the final 3.
Now, you heard about this? Somebody said Dwight Jones, Lucas' wife, was entitled to his earnings for 20 years after the first 3 movies. That's why he waited to make the prequel. Have you heard of that?
Really? I hadn't heard of that. That's interesting. If that's true.
Dr. Dre should have been paying attention. What do you think about that deal with his wife? What do you think? Is that fair?
I hadn't even really. What's the details on it? Because I haven't really been following.
It's a hot mess. He's been with him for over, I guess, about 20 something years. But no, Dr. Dre, have all these. But she won a lot of money for being. She was with him for 20 something years, but he was already established though before they, got together. But still, he made a lot of more money since that time. But I was thinking about what you're talking about with the toy thing. The fact that Death Row Records, their catalog is owned by Hasbro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Suge Knight was actually cheated out of the masters by the court. They cheated him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it came out later that he was cheated out of his masters.
Really?
So to me, it should have just invalidated the whole sale then. If he was, because it's just funny how they do the things they do. It's not about the color of skin; it's the color of money.
It's color of money, yeah.
And also the color of character, because it's not about ethics in business. It's about trying to make that money by any means. So there's so many stories that you could talk about as it relates to this type of stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And Alan Klein was the guy. Alan Klein was the dude that was Sam Cooke's business partner, stole his. No, his wife ended up selling his percentage after he died in his publishing to Alan Klein for about $100,000 back in the early 60s. So can
Oh,
you imagine how much that catalog generates
yeah.
now?
Now, oh yeah, it's millions,
Yeah, but
millions.
I want to ask you about this because been a trend lately. Like Bob Dylan sold his whole catalog, I think, for 300 million, and Lil
Mm-hmm,
Wayne sold a part of his catalog for 100 million.
mm-hmm.
And a lot of musicians doing they selling their publishing or whatever to this company. I forgot the name of the company. Y'all can Google this up. Take a look. It's all online. But what are your thoughts about selling your intellectual property? Like Bob Dylan sold it for 300 million. Was that a smart play?
Well, whether or not it's a smart play is depends on what he's trying to get out of the situation. You know what I'm saying? So things like that. It's not for me or anyone to determine whether it was good or bad or smart or stupid, because all of that is relative to the person who's making the deal. So depending on what it is that he's trying to do or to get out of the situation, which is obviously he wants the cash as in exchange for the headache of exploiting it. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, you have to, there's a whole system that goes, or there's a part of trying to exploit that content. Doing, issuing those licenses and tracking those licenses and defending those licenses and all this other stuff. I mean, it's a whole business of surrounding that. And if you don't want the headache of it, or whatever, so maybe you think, here, I'll sell this, get 300 million, and then I'll do some other things or whatever. Maybe that's smart. But then if you want to have a legacy, you want it to stay in your family, you want your family to be the ones to, then your goal will be like, no, I don't want to sell it. That's not a good deal for me, because I'm interested in generational legacy and my family, from generations to come, them being in the position to reap the benefits, to make the money, and to control the content. So I don't know what's pushing them to make these deals, or, moving them in this direction, as far as why. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's bad or it's stupid. I just, I don't know what it is, what their agenda is in making them.
Yeah, he sold his entire song catalog to Universal Music Group, that Bob Dylan. It's a headline. But also, let's get back to Michael Jackson. I mean, people don't understand Michael Jackson he knew his value. That's why they killed him, because he wanted to buy Marvel. Stan Lee talked about that. Imagine Michael Jackson controlling the Marvel universe, the Avenger movies and all that stuff. DreamWorks stole their logo from Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch logo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they stole it from him. Cause he was trying to do movies with Steven Spielberg and all them guys. He wanted to do a epic about the history of Africa, and they laughed at him. Steven Spielberg did Schindler's List. If you talk to Steven Spielberg, what is his favorite and most important movie, he'll say Schindler's List, because it's about his people. Schindler's List. He heard about that growing up as a kid, so that was more important to him than any other movie he made, like Jaws or E.T. or any other movie. But Michael Jackson was so deep, man. People don't understand. They destroyed that man. He had to mess up his face just to fit in. He didn't fit in. But his mind was different. Like Dick Gregory, Dick Gregory was real close to Michael Jackson. He saved his life 15 years ago because he was dehydrated, because he was afraid to eat anything during that trial, because he said they were trying to kill him. So Dick Gregory saved him. Dick Gregory knew him very well. He said Michael Jackson didn't have no childhood. Like, if he opened up the refrigerator and the light come on the refrigerator, he started performing. That's how disconnected from reality that Michael Jackson was, but he was a hell of a business person.
Right.
You look at even December, the month of December, on Christmas Day, James Brown, they say he was murdered now on Christmas Day 14 years ago. His son-in-law got killed. He wanted to brought it up, and next thing you know, son-in-law got killed in his driveway in Atlanta. There's an article about that came out several years ago, but now people are saying that he was murdered because he was about to recover. He was doing fine. All of a sudden, he just died. Do you think we talk about Sam Cooke, who died on December 10th, 1964 at the hotel under questionable circumstances.
Right.
I talked about the Allen Klein manager guy who controlled all his publishing, basically. Then you talk about Otis Redding. Like James Brown allegedly looked over that plane for Otis and said it's not worthy for flight. Do not fly this plane. Next thing you know, Otis fly the plane. He filed to Lake Monona, frozen and stuff. There's pictures of him in Jet magazine, but Otis owned his publishing at the time. Like he's buried on his 300-acre ranch called the Big O outside of Macon, Georgia. He's buried down there. But I don't know what the state of his affairs are now, but he was encouraging other black musicians to control their publishing, stop taking the money up front, think long term. And people don't, Otis was just 26 years old when he died. And I talked to cats that worked at Stacks. They told me like some stories, and one dude said he was stupid, not because he was stupid, but because he used to tell everybody all his moves. He said, everybody, you know how you look at the movies? I expose you assholes. I'm going to go to the authorities. Nah, just go to the authorities before you tell them that. Because you might not make it to the authorities. There's a story about Ron Brown confronting Bill Clinton in the White House in the Oval Office over the China thing. See, the Democrats been with China for a long, long time. And he was the beg man for Clinton for China. Ron Brown was. But he did not want his son to go to prison for the sins of the father. Because he was Clinton's Secretary of Commerce. And Clinton, I mean, he allegedly confronted Bill and look, if you don't protect my son, I'm telling everybody about the Chinese stuff. Next thing you know, he dead on an airplane crash over in Europe. Shot in the head.
Oh, that was a senator, right? Yeah.
So Ron Brown was Secretary of Commerce under Bill Clinton. But he was the beg man for him for the China connection. All that China stuff came out when Al Gore was running for president in 2000. So Joe Biden and all this stuff ain't new. Cartel, none of this stuff ain't trying to make it political, but you don't know how dirty the game is. They don't want to know. So stop inquiring about the BS if you don't want to know how the sausage is made. Because Clive Davis took Janis Joplin into a room by herself to sign a contract, and next thing you know, Janis Joplin dead. Janis Joplin will tell people that Jimi Hendrix was murdered. Jimi Hendrix did not die like people think he died. He was murdered. His manager was Mike Jeffrey, who was British intelligence, MI6. He was over Jimi Hendrix's estate, and he disappeared in a plane crash. Nothing was ever recovered. This is back in the 70s. You can look all this stuff up. It's public information, public knowledge. I know cats that knew Jimi Hendrix and all this stuff. They did with they got this misperception about Jimi Hendrix. He was not a junkie. He just liked to experiment with stuff, whether it be sex or drugs. His band was called The Experience, right? But what people don't understand about Jimi Hendrix, he was a big financial contributor to the Black Panther Party.
Oh, okay.
See, like John Lennon, all them guys was deep in because John Lennon talked to Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory saved John Lennon's life from drugs. He detoxed John Lennon, Yoko Ono. He was summoned by John Lennon to come to his mansion cave in Europe. It was a cave that was a mansion. Okay. And it's a photograph. See, Dick Gregory was on a photo cover of Jet magazine with John Lennon and Yoko Ono talking about how he saved them. John Lennon wrote the song Imagine because he was inspired by a prayer book that Dick Gregory gave him. And he talked about, hey, the inspiration for the song Imagine was Dick Gregory giving me this prayer book. But he also told Dick Gregory that they were sent over here to America to get the young people hooked on drugs through music. Like you look at the song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, it's about LSD. Hey Jude is about heroin. And they were a product of the Tavistock Institute over. See, I'm telling people stuff, people are like, it's a conspiracy. Yeah, because the conspiracy is real. They are a product of the Tavistock Institute, which is like part of the MK Ultra thing, mind control. All media is mind control and programming. All this stuff with the news and the movies, predictive programming is conditions us to believe and manifest a certain type of reality. So Dick was told this by John Lennon. See, you're trying to change the song because he was against war. So he used the music instead of getting people hooked on drugs, getting people to hook on peace, and they killed John Lennon at the Dakota. Now, Mark David Chapman, they say he did it. But here's the funny thing. The lead detective on the case said, this guy committed the perfect crime. All he had to do was leave. And he just sat and waited for the cops to come. He said it's like he was sitting for us, like he was on the mind control. Because the doorman at the Dakota was Cuban national who was a CIA assassin. You can look all this stuff up.
Wow. So
this stuff is deep with the music, man. Yeah. It's very deep, like Tupac. Now they talking about Tupac and Biggie were killed by the LAPD or elements within the LAPD. See, it's not being broadcast. That's why the internet is important. All these alternative news sources, they talking about stuff that the mainstream media should be telling us about, but their job is to dumb us down and keep us misinformed.
Well, I believe that.
I mean, like shows like this, people ain't getting all this information they need to get on shows that, like 60 Minutes, for example, right? Their top consultants are CIA. It's a thing called Operation Mockingbird with the CIA. The deep state fund the media. They fund Hollywood and they fund the media. I remember several years ago, like it was yesterday, that a top journalist on 60 Minutes, he was killed in a weird car accident, like some Born Identity stuff, like a fiery crash. I can look that up. I don't have time to be trying to spoon feed everybody all this crap. Let's look this up. See, 60 Minutes newsman killed in car accident. It's like something from a Born Identity or from a Tom Clancy novel.
So
Probably CIA.
So my question is though, once you uncovered all of this information and you see it and you're looking at it and you believe that it's true, then my thing is, so what are you going to do about it, or how are you going to function now? Because the thing is if the system is there, and let's just, for the sake of argument, just say, okay, it's all true, then what is it that you believe that people need to do in order to combat it? If you don't want, should people try to seek out alternative news outlets so that they're getting both sides of the story, so that they can critically think and decide for themselves what it is that they choose to believe in, or what it is that they choose not to? Is it, should you still just press upon individuals to keep their publishing, to maintain and control their publishing, and not get in bed with individuals who may take them to a certain level? I mean, is there, and the question is, if you're trying to go to that level of a Jay-Z, of a Michael Jackson or whatever, is there any way you can get there without getting in bed with the devil, so to speak? You know what I'm saying? I mean, and then if that's the case, then if that's the case and it, then at that point, have you chosen to be a part of that system? Because you can always choose not to be a part of that system. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's good to be aware and to know about all of this stuff. But at some point in time, you're going to have to figure out, as an artist or anyone else, how do you plan to function within the constraints of, what's going on?
Yeah, you got to make a choice to want to know, is red pill, blue pill. Let's get to the purple pill. I now have a purple pill reality. Like, look at both sides and be able to navigate it, and don't let it suck you in. Let it suck you in, but know that it's real. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, it's just good for me. I rather know than not to know, and I accept the burden of knowing, and it's a lonely existence to know. to deal with this stuff is a heavy. I don't think a lot of people say they woke. You're not really woke, because to me, to be woke is to know the anniversaries of this and that. I know all these anniversaries in my head. Like, God, Jesus. Like, these dead folks be talking to me. Tell our story, brother Ron. Tell the story, man. Tell our story. I'm like, Jesus Christ, why me, God? Like, for example, December 25th is the birthday of also Erick Monte. Now, a lot of people don't know who Erick Monte is, but really, he's the father of the Black family TV sitcom. Norman Lear destroyed this man. He came up. He did the movie Cooley High. It's based on his life. The movie Cooley High is based on his life. He came up with the idea for the Jeffersons, all these Black TV sitcoms. Good Time. That was his idea, based on him growing up in Cabrini Green projects in Chicago. He's the one that advocated for a father to be in the home, because Norman Lear didn't want no father in the home. Norman Lear's almost 100 years old. He ain't 100. But no, Erick Monte been struggling because he tried to take on Hollywood to protect the image of the Black family. He could not find hardly any lawyer, a deal maker, or litigator. He could not find any litigator to take him on. He even approached Jesse Jackson. He approached the NAACP. He said, look, they're trying to destroy the Black family through TV. They're trying to destroy the Black family through TV, and people didn't take him seriously. They didn't want to help him. Finally, he had made a deal. He found a lawyer, which was not probably working in his interest. Got $1 million settlement, and Bates was blackballed. Okay, he financed a play that didn't do so well. Ended up getting on Skid Row, getting on drugs, had all type of health problems and ailments. Had several strokes, and the brother's still around, from my understanding. And I actually interviewed him several years ago. It's on my We All Be TV channel. It's kind of hard to understand him a little bit, but I can understand. He had so many strokes. It's amazing that he was still alive at that point. I think he was moved back to Chicago at that point. But Erick Monte, who was born on Christmas Day, nobody talks about. He's the real father of the Black TV sitcom, and also the idea for the Cosby Show. They took it from him. They never got credit for it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because he worked with the original Lionel, developed these Black TV shows. You know what I'm saying? But that's a brother that try to take on the system and try to do right by Black folks, but we don't honor the people that fight for us. We really don't.
Well, you're probably absolutely correct about that. But I think based on where we are today, we're in a position now where we have the education, the resources, and the money where many people who were trying to fight within the system to create those positive images on television, whatever, we can now do this outside the system with the advent of YouTube and other social media platforms, and go direct to the consumer with those stories and with that content, if we're willing to do the work, which is to create the system. Sort of going back to Ma Rainey, do the work, market it to your people, and create that fan base, that foundation for yourself, and build up from there, and allow, and be willing to allow that to be enough. But if you're constantly forcing yourself or trying to force yourself into a system that doesn't want you, or definitely is going to make it difficult for you to function, then that's where you basically create insanity for yourself. It's once you decide to let that go and to say, I don't need to be, or nor want to be, nor will strive to be a part of that system, and I'm going to create something because I believe it's needed. These images are needed, and I'm going to put it out here this way, direct to consumer. If that's what truly the universe and the people need, then they will gravitate to it. It's sort of like with the young lady Insecure. I've never seen her show since she's been on HBO, but I did see a couple of episodes when it was when she was on YouTube. It was called the something of the awkward black girl. I forgot the name, but it
Yeah,
was
that's the basis for her show. Yeah,
right. And
how she got famous and found.
but she basically created that show, and she put it out on YouTube, and she built up her YouTube channel to the point that it was must-see TV, by a lot of people. And then she built it up to the point where then the industry started knocking, and then she broke into the system that way. But she did it on her own terms, and she pulled in a lot of people with her. It's from the music that she used and the artists who were a part of her team. And I think I don't know if it's just recently, but I believe she created her own record label from that, because a lot of the musicians and the music that she put in her film projects, they were artists who were up and coming and working with her as well. And then of course the actors who did it. But she didn't spend all her time trying to bust down the doors of Hollywood. She said, hey, I'm talented, I can write. We'll get our cameras, we get our actors together, and we're just going to produce this show, and we're going to put it on our YouTube channel. And so that's something for people to start thinking about doing, as opposed to always looking to try to get into the established system and to try to be validated by it.
I'm gonna give her props on this. So you made me think about something like Issa Rae. One thing I like what she did is that HBO was trying to get somebody else to play the lead in her story. Mm-hmm. And she refused to cow down and give in, because had she did that, we might not know her name right now.
Exactly.
I mean, she stayed true. She wrote her own ticket and got it punched. Same thing with Sylvester Stallone. Like, he carried the idea for Rocky as a way to launch his career. And the studios and stuff kept on saying, we love the script, but we want to have somebody else play the lead. And he didn't care how much money it was thrown at him. This man was destitute. He was poor. He said, no, this is my meal ticket. I'm not going to give up my golden ticket for you all. And he stuck by it, and he found a studio that agreed with it, and the rest is history. But we got to create our own lane. Just like with August Wilson, who wrote Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Right.
He had enough sense to tell this story, because I remember reading something. He was in high school. He wrote this essay. The teacher didn't believe he wrote it because he was black. So he dropped out of high school, which I was like, oh. But then this is what he did. He went to a hotel, got him some old 45s, an old record player, listened to the blues all day, the blues and jazz. So I'm going to write a cycle that talks about the black experience from every decade of the 20th century. So he wrote 10 plays. They call it the cycle, talking about our struggle, our perspective, but he did it his way. He paid the cost to be the boss, to be to practice self-determination. This is the season of Kwanzaa, whatever. But to practice that self-determination, that creativity, that cooperation with other people, helping other talents get on as well. So I mean, these are stories that we don't know, but a lot of our people don't read. Right. We don't really care for the history, the Sankofa stuff, looking back towards the past for inspiration for the present and the future. We need to start getting to these stories. Learn about Erick Monte's, what went right and what went wrong. Learn from Issa Rae, what's going right for her, stuff that she learned, and whatever. But somebody asks Miss Duckworth, what are your thoughts about Tyler Perry?
Oh, my thoughts about Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always enjoyed Tyler Perry. I'm just be honest with you, but looking at the greater, when you look at the end game with Tyler Perry, it brings it, into focus what it was he was trying to do. And I don't think people recognize what he was doing initially, but he basically did a Ma Rainey. He created his own, he created an art form that spoke to his own, and then he built his foundation on his own, and therefore gave him the leverage and the negotiating power. When he decided to go to Hollywood, he came into Hollywood as a boss, and he was able to create those, extraordinary deals, from the UPN. I think he did that deal. He did a deal for 100 episodes from the beginning, because usually 100, once you hit 100 episodes, that's when you open the door for syndication. So a lot of times, so that's considered a milestone in the world of television. So a lot of times when you get your TV show, they may order, 10, 1 season, 2 season, whatever. And then you get 100 episodes and it's like, oh, great, whatever. And he did his deal for was it the Browns or no, it wasn't the Browns. I forgot the first TV show he did a deal, but it was for 100 episodes off the wham, and which was unheard of. And so then, and you just see how he's built his career and his empire over the times. He's basically maintained control of the ownership of his content and everything, so that it always kept him in the negotiating power. And then also he worked the system, because he knew for the system, they value your opening weekend. So he would always try to make sure that his films were #1 that opening weekend. Now, regardless, they probably dropped off by weekend 2, 3, 4, but he made sure that every weekend they opened up at #1. And then also too, he kept his costs down so that you had a, the ROI, the return on investment, was always very good as far as, those who invested in the Tyler Perry film. And that's partly because of the fact that he owned his own studio and he basically can control those costs. Now, some people may have some issues with him on the other end as far as, how he pays his actors, how he pays his writers. A lot of what he does is outside of the union. So that's a whole nother conversation. And people can go back and forth on that. But as far as how he structured his career and what he ultimately did at the end of the day, I can't do anything but tip my hat to it, because it was awesome. And it put him in a position where, right now he's, Black owned movie studio. I mean, the largest, I think, in the country down there in Georgia, and I mean, that's Little Hollywood right there in Atlanta, and partly because of what he built down there.
And also, there's another person who made his own ticket. He punched his own way.
He made his own way.
Yeah. So, and also, you make $1 billion, you can't play fair. You can't play clean. You got to do some dirt, I think, to make $1 billion. He's a multi-billionaire, right?
We're just, questionable decisions, because that, again, a lot of people do have issues pertaining to, the fact that he used non-union workers and he writes all his scripts, so somebody had an issue because he writes all his scripts. Then, people do question, his storytelling, technique and all this other stuff. But, at the end of the day, people were like, are people still buying it? People enjoying it, and they are. I enjoy it. And yeah, I know it's not, I've seen better writing, what I'm saying, as far as, dialogue and everything. That's not what I go to Tyler Perry for, what I'm saying? I mean, that's just an escape and a few laughs and, and there you go, what I'm saying? So, I mean, you just take it, and he, and that's what he did. And I appreciate the fact too, even when he was having a situation with Spike Lee, when he got ready to name those studios, he still honored Spike Lee. He recognized the value and the importance of what Spike Lee did for the film industry, and he gave him that honor, regardless. And so, I have to respect that as well.
I remember Tyler, like, yeah, I mean, was America built by non-union workers? Right? They weren't even paid anything, actually, more than just non-union workers, right? But with Tyler, yeah, I don't care for the aesthetics of it, the quality of the writing and the acting could be better. I mean, he got talent. He had, but I think he need help somebody help with the scripts or something. I mean, he have more writers that are gifted out there, give him a chance. So, cause what's gonna happen if he, everybody got to leave? You know what I'm saying? Who gonna succeed him or become his successor in that organization?
Right. Well, maybe he's going to groom his son, so he does.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a little baby though. He's like what, 5 years old, 4 years old,
5 or 6 years old, something like that.
Well, he got a long way to go, but sometimes your kids disappoint you in that area. Like, you're not related to, they might be the successor to the throne, actually.
Yeah,
the kids doesn't benefit off of it, of course, but you look at the Sam Walton kids. I mean, they benefit from their father's empire, but it's whatever they don't really run it. They just spend it.
Yeah, they spend the money off of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't really care for like a lot of Tyler Perry stuff. But I understand that he represents an audience. He understands his audience. He overstands them. But I was a gopher for them when they came down here back in February of this year. We didn't know what's going to happen with the rest of the year, right? And it was packed out at the FedEx Forum for Tyler Perry. And people say, well, all these people, like, you're a very educated person, very thoughtful, you're an intellectual, and you enjoy the silliness of a Tyler Perry production. It's escapism. Like you said, it's like you're not trying to deal with reality.
Right. So, you just take it the way it is. Take it for what it is and go on. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. But then Spike Lee, that's another story. I think Spike Lee stuff has been hit and miss lately.
Yeah, but I enjoyed BlacKkKlansman. The one, and that's the one he won the Oscar, I think, for
screenwriting.
Adaptation, screenwriting or whatever.
Or whatever it was. But to me, it's kind of heavy-handed at the end. Like, man, I didn't need all this Black Lives Matter mess. I'd be honest, I could have. Now that wasn't him. I think about the Five Bloods. They could have been written better. That could have been done better. The Five Bloods with Chadwick Boseman.
I love the Five Bloods.
Really? Okay, but you think it's realistic for a gold to be like at the top of the grade? That gold gonna be gone if you wait like decades later to get the gold and it's not buried. I mean, it's weird.
It was. I mean, it was.
Like, even the flashbacks, they could use younger actors, right? They could use younger actors on the flashback. Come on, Spike, got Netflix money.
It was somewhat, I mean, at least it wasn't still in the box. You know what I'm saying? They had it like spread out because I'm like, you wouldn't think over the day.
Why would you wait so long to try to retrieve it though? I mean, hell, the Vietnam War was over in the 70s, right? And you come back in the 2000s. I mean, come back in present day,
right?
They're gonna still be there, shallow, buried, and all. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, but I didn't even think that deep on all of that.
Yeah, I was thinking too much on that. Like, dang, Spike. Then the Black Lives Matter message, like, please, you so heavy-handed with it.
Right.
Like, you hamming it up, Spike. Damn, you got talent, but damn. But some movies I like are the movies that I didn't know Spike Lee made. Like The Inside Man or Clockers, Miracle at St. Anna. Like, you don't know, it's not too heavy-handed Spike. Those are the ones I enjoy.
Director. I mean, he didn't write the scripts. He
probably. No, I'm talking about as director. Like, how know what I'm talking about. But they'll be the best movies. Spike Lee actually made this movie. Wow. It's like the Woody Allen movie, Bullets Over Broadway. I didn't really know that Woody Allen made it till later. I like Woody Allen stuff actually. I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of black folks don't care for it. But Woody, he was one of the greatest stand-up comics of all time.
Really?
Well, he started off as stand-up, and he was like, actually funny. And I mean, he's very neurotic and weird. He's weird. He's creepy vibe, but he's talented at what he does. But still to this day, actors and actresses they'll sell their kid, their firstborn, to be in a Woody Allen movie. There's a prestige to it. It's not about the money with a Woody Allen movie, it's the prestige. Because look how many people won Oscars based on a Woody Allen movie. Or being a part of it.
Yeah, but, you got a group that cares for it, or definitely wants it. So, I personally just have never really enjoyed Woody Allen's work, but I do recognize there is a group of people that do. So.
Yeah, I'm one of them weird people that actually like. I think with Midnight in Paris, that was a great one. I'm into the Harlem Renaissance, the Expatriate, and all that stuff. You have Ida Bricktop Smith, the famous black club owner over there doing her thing, and Josephine Baker and stuff like that. And Woody Allen, one of his music heroes is Sidney Bechet. So he had used one of his songs as the theme song because Sidney Bechet was from New Orleans. He played soprano, saxophone, and clarinet. You know, he never got the fame he should have got in America. But later on in life, when he moved to Paris and France to live, he's a national hero over there.
Oh, okay.
So Woody Allen learned to play soprano, saxophone, and clarinet. His inspiration was Sidney Bechet. They did a documentary about it, about his fascination with Sidney Bechet and with that type of Dixieland jazz. So
okay.
I ain't gonna hold you up. So like, what? I mean, I really enjoyed talking with you. You got anything else to add from the Ma Rainey thing you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No. I think we definitely covered covered all the bases with Ma Rainey. But you know what? I do have one other thing that I'll just drop this. Her sense of loyalty that really did come through with the film. She was very loyal to her nephew who stuttered, but
definitely
he really bad.
Very patient.
Right. He wanted him to record on her album because she knew that the guy would pay him the $25 to record so that he could send money to his mother, who was her sister. So she was using that group economics. She was using her situation to help generate income for her family. And she was very loyal. So even though everyone else was telling her her nephew couldn't do it, she was adamant about the fact that her nephew was going to do it, and she stayed loyal to him, and she used her influence and her position and power to force the issue. And essentially, no matter how long it took for them to record her nephew, she didn't care that's what was going to happen. And so that sense of loyalty, and it seemed like that was just who she was, very loyal to those who were around her. I think that's also another point that's that can be taken from that film, and artists need to recognize that. And because I've experienced, artists, in the past, unfortunately, they're not loyal. You have people who work with you who commit to pouring into your career and your life and everything. And then right when you think like something has come along, you have somebody come along who hasn't been there, but they now see the potential. And then you jump ship because you feel like this person can take me further than the person I've been with, not recognizing the fact that you were, this person who's been with you the whole time pulled you up to the point so that other person will even recognize you. So why would you not stay loyal to the person who's been with you all along? So that's one of the other things that I think artists can take away, just learning how to stay loyal, to those who have proven themselves to you.
Is loyalty like has an expiration date on it, like milk?
It depends, I mean, it depends. You loyal until someone shows you that they no longer deserve your loyalty. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. Sister Angela Green got this position for millions. Go to her YouTube channel, subscribe. A lot of great hidden information on there, y'all. Y'all need to amplify because she's spitting the game. She knows what you're talking about. 20 years plus in this game and still around. And this year's interest, because how do you think Ma Rainey could adapt in 2020 pandemic land? I mean, being a live performing musician, we think she would. What would have been her moves? You think she should have made this year?
She would probably have been online by now. You know what I'm saying? Probably would already, because she would be a part of the black the black movement, the black media. They're all on YouTube and everything like that. So I think she would have already made that shift, and she just would take it online and go from there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Already been in films. She probably already been in films, as far as music licensing and placement and all this other stuff. She was on that level. So yeah, she would have been all right. Or she may have already, saved her money where, she could say, okay, I'm retired. 2020 is making me retire, but guess what? I got money in the bank. I'm good. I'll just stay on in the house and stay quarantined.
Yep. I'm rich. I'm rich. I'm rich.
Right.
Never gave y'all money.
Exactly.
What's the best way to reach you, Sister Angela?
Well,
attorney
at law. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Positionmenow.com is our website. You can also reach me through there. I'm definitely accessible. So feel free.
You are very much accessible. It's always good to have you on. Thank you for participating in this Jimmy Lunsford Jamboree Festival. All the information you provided us, because Jimmy Lunsford would definitely been because he was a master promoter of radio. Because Jimmy Lunsford knew the power of radio to promote, even when he was a teacher at Manassas High School, when he was doing local gigs and dances in Memphis, he would use the radio to promote. Even when he came to the Cotton Club, he became the #1 band for Black people by utilizing the radio broadcast from the Cotton Club. And he died the year before WDIA came on the scene. The first Black radio program, first Black radio program format in the country. That started in Memphis back in 1948. B.B. King was a DJ at WDIA, among others. So thank you so much, Sister Angela Green, Esquire.
Me. I appreciate it.
Huh?
I said thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor. I could talk to you all day, actually. But I put Bill somebody else's show right now, but I don't know what's going on. But in the words of Duke Ellington, we love you madly. You keep on producing and pushing.
Thank you, Ron. I certainly will.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you in 2021.
All right.
And y'all check it out on Facebook. Position Me Now. I put it up there for you all. Go get it. Sign up. A lot of great information. Check out on YouTube as well. And let me just read this disclaimer. You know, like perpetuity. Okay. Disclaimer. The views expressed by hosts and guests on the We All Be TV platform are not the official views, opinions, beliefs, or perspectives of We All Be News or the We All Be Group Incorporated. We All Be News is an organization that thoroughly believes in supplementing the information narrative that is usually supplied by the corporate news entities with those viewpoints and expressions which may be marginalized or ignored for a plethora of reasons. We are about informing the general public on alternative perspectives as it relates to news and information, and letting the general public be the ultimate judge in deciding on how to use said information. Informed citizens are responsible citizens. Thank you for your support. And that does it for this edition. And we'll see y'all next time. And remember, we love you madly. Y'all keep on producing and pushing.